The crystalline spires of the Concordat chamber pierced the amber sky of Centaurus Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 setting suns. Inside, 12,000 representatives from across the galaxy sat in concentric rings, their attention fixed on the central podium where High Arbiter Nexus, their most ancient leader, faced humanity's ambassador. Samira Hayes stood alone on the speaking platform, her dark diplomatic uniform a stark contrast against the chamber's opalescent walls. She remained perfectly still, showing no reaction to the Arbiter's words as they echoed through the vast chamber. The Concordat's position is final, Ambassador Hayes, Nexus announced, his bioluminescent form pulsing with each word. Earth must accept our guidance and oversight. The era of human independence ends today. The chamber fell silent. Every species present knew this moment's significance. For 3 centuries, humanity had been the galaxy's great anomaly, advancing faster than any species in recorded history, expanding through the stars without requiring Concordat assistance, and worst of all, proving that their methodologies worked. "We've watched your kind defy natural law," Nexus continued, his tone carrying millennia of authority. "You colonize worlds our scientists deemed uninhabitable. You develop technologies that shouldn't be possible with your resource limitations. Your very existence threatens the stability you've maintained for 50,000 years." Samara's lips curved into a slight smile. "And that frightens you, doesn't it, Arbiter?" A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. No one addressed the High Arbiter with such directness. "Fear is irrelevant," Nexus responded, though his luminescence flickered briefly. "The Concordate exists to maintain order. Your species' unchecked development poses risks we cannot allow. You will submit to oversight, or you will face complete isolation from all Concordat worlds and species." Samara finally moved, taking 3 steps forward. Her voice, when it came, filled the chamber without effort. "Humanity has received your ultimatum, Arbiter Nexus. We've studied your histories, analyzed your laws, and considered your demands carefully." She paused, her gaze sweeping the assembled aliens. "Our answer is no." The chamber erupted. The Volpraxian delegation's crystalline forms shattered in shock, while the Meridian representatives' neural networks pulsed with agitation. Nexus himself seemed to grow larger, his energy field expanding with barely contained rage. "You cannot simply refuse," he thundered. "The Concordat's authority is absolute. Without our trade routes, without our technologies, without our protection, humanity will survive," Samara interrupted. "As we always have. As we did before we knew of your existence. As we will continue to do." She turned in a slow circle, addressing the entire chamber. "You speak of authority, of stability, of control. But you've never understood humanity's greatest strength. We don't need your permission to exist. We don't require your approval to advance. Every barrier you've placed before us has become a challenge to overcome. Every limitation you've tried to impose has spurred us to innovate." The Ardaxian delegation, youngest among the Concordat species, leaned forward in obvious fascination. Their representative, Vextol, dared to speak. "But the isolation protocols, no species has ever survived them." Samara's smile widened. "Then perhaps it's time for that to change as well." She squared her shoulders, standing straight and proud. "Humanity respectfully declines both options of your ultimatum. We will neither submit nor isolate. We will continue to explore, to expand, to grow, not because you allow it, but because that is who we are." Nexus's form pulsed with barely contained fury. "You leave us no choice but to enforce." "No," Samara said quietly, but with enough force to silence him. "You leave ourselves no choice. Humanity offers a third option, acceptance. Accept that not all species need your guidance. Accept that there are many paths to advancement. Accept that control is not the same as stability." She took a deep breath, her final words carrying the weight of her entire species' determination. "The age of absolute Concordat authority is ending, Arbiter Nexus. Not because humanity demands it, but because we've proven it was never necessary to begin with. As she turned to leave the chamber, the silence that followed her was different from any the Concordat had known in 50,000 years. It was the silence of change, of possibility, of fear, not of humanity's defiance, but of what that defiance revealed about the Concordat itself. The revolution had begun, not with weapons or warfare, but with a simple, powerful truth. Humanity would forge its own path among the stars, and no force in the galaxy could stop them. Admiral Thex of the Concordate Enforcement Fleet stared at the holographic display with all four of his eyes, mandibles clicking in agitation. The sensor readings couldn't be right. They simply couldn't be. "Run the scan again," he ordered, his crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the blue glow of the bridge instruments. His second-in-command, Sub-Commander Relax, manipulated the controls with practiced efficiency. "Third scan complete, Admiral. Results unchanged. We're detecting human activity in the Proxima sector." This was impossible. The Concordat's isolation protocols had been in effect for 6 standard months. Every hyperspace route to the human-controlled space had been sealed, every quantum communication channel blocked, every trade agreement severed. The humans should be struggling, desperate, reaching out for help. Instead, they were expanding. "Show me the activity patterns," Thex commanded, moving closer to the display. The hologram shifted, revealing dozens of human ships moving with purpose through supposedly blocked sectors. They weren't following known space lanes, they were forging new ones. "They're using some kind of drive signature we've never seen before," Rylax reported, her sensor stalks wavering in confusion. "It's like they're sliding between space-time points instead of pushing through it." Thex felt a familiar unease settle in his thorax. This was exactly what made humans so dangerous. Give them a barrier, and they didn't try to break through it. They found a way around it entirely. "Send a tight beam communication to High Command," he ordered. "Mark it Priority 1. But before Relax could comply, the ship's sensors screamed in alarm. A massive human vessel had appeared less than 10 kilometers away, seemingly materializing from nowhere. Its design was unlike anything in Concordat records: sleek, predatory, efficient. "By the first light," Rylax whispered. "How did they get so close without detection?" The answer came in the form of a communication request from the human ship. Vex hesitated only briefly before accepting. The holographic display shifted, and he found himself face to face with Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. "Admiral Thex," she greeted him with what humans called a smile. "I apologize for startling your crew. We're still fine-tuning the stealth capabilities of our phased drive." Thex's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "Your presence in this sector violates Concordat law, Captain, the isolation protocols. Apply only to conventional space travel and communication methods," Chen interrupted smoothly. "We're not violating any laws, Admiral. We're simply operating outside their scope." The implications hit Thex like a gravitational wave. The humans hadn't broken the isolation protocols, they'd rendered them irrelevant. While the Concordat congratulated itself on containing humanity, humans had simply developed entirely new ways to traverse space. "How many ships have you equipped with this phase drive?" he asked, dreading the answer. Chen's smile widened slightly. "All of them, Admiral. Every ship in the Earth fleet was upgraded within weeks of the isolation protocols being implemented. We've been preparing for something like this for decades." Thex felt his crystalline form vibrate with anxiety. "The Concordat will never accept this level of technological advancement without oversight. You must understand." "What we understand," Chen cut in, her tone hardening, "is that the galaxy is too vast for any single authority to control. The Concordat can either adapt to this reality or continue to waste resources trying to contain what cannot be contained." She leaned forward slightly, her expression serious. "We're not your enemies, Admiral. We're not even your rivals. We're simply a species that chooses to find its own way. The question isn't whether you can stop us, it's whether you can accept that you don't need to. Before Vex could respond, the human ship seemed to ripple like heat waves over desert sand, and then it was gone. The sensor readings showed no trace of its passage, no indication it had ever been there at all. Relax broke the stunned silence. Admiral, what do we report to High Command? Vex stared at the space where the human ship had been, his ancient species' pride warring with the undeniable evidence before him. The humans weren't just surviving isolation, they were thriving. They had taken the Concordat's ultimate punishment and turned it into an opportunity for advancement. Report everything, he finally said. But add a personal note. We are not dealing with defiance anymore. We are witnessing evolution. The humans aren't breaking our rules, they're proving those rules are obsolete. As his words were transmitted to High Command, Vex wondered if the Concordat would understand what he already knew. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their adaptability. It was their absolute conviction that limitations were merely suggestions, and barriers were just opportunities in disguise. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in 50,000 years, the Concordat wasn't controlling that change. They could only watch as humanity rewrote the laws of what was possible, one impossible achievement at a time. The emergency council chamber on Centaurus Prime hadn't been used in 10,000 years. Now, its ancient systems hummed with urgent activity as the most powerful members of the Concordat gathered to face an unprecedented crisis. High Arbiter Nexus's form pulsed with barely contained fury as he reviewed the latest reports. Around him, representatives from the elder races, the founding species of the Concordat, watched with mounting concern. Quantum breach signatures detected in 37 sectors, reported Matriarch Vinixa of the Illuminated Ones, her ethereal form rippling with distress. The humans have developed some form of instantaneous communication that completely bypasses our barriers. Not just communication, added Sovereign Catal of the Arbiters, his crystalline body refracting light in patterns of anxiety. They're sharing their technology with the younger races. The Ardaxians have already replicated their phase drive design. Nexus's energy field flared dangerously. Impossible. The Ardaxians are barely space-capable. They couldn't possibly. They did, interrupted a new voice. All attention turned to Dr. Maya Patel, a human xenotechnologist who had been granted emergency speaking rights despite the isolation protocols. She stood calmly in the center of the chamber, surrounded by beings who had watched stars born and die. Humanity didn't just give them the technology, she continued. We taught them how to think differently about physical laws. The Ardaxians developed their own version of the phase drive within months because we showed them that it was possible. This is precisely why your species must be contained, Nexus thundered. You spread chaos throughout ordered systems. You encourage deviation from established paths of development. Maya's laugh echoed through the chamber, a sound of genuine amusement that made several elder race representatives recoil. Chaos. We call it innovation, arbiter, evolution, growth. The very things your Concordat claims to nurture but actually fears. She gestured to a holographic display showing human ships moving freely through supposedly blocked sectors. Your isolation protocols didn't weaken us. They forced us to become stronger. Every barrier you created became a puzzle to solve. Every restriction became a challenge to overcome. And now you corrupt younger races with these dangerous ideas, Matriarch Vinixa accused. We don't corrupt, we inspire. Maya corrected. The Ardaxians didn't copy our technology, they improved upon it. The Nexari aren't just learning our quantum communication methods, they're developing applications we never imagined. She turned slowly, addressing the entire chamber. That's what truly terrifies you, isn't it? Not that humanity defies you, but that we're proving your entire system of control development is unnecessary. Species can advance without your oversight. They can innovate without your permission. Sovereign Catal's crystalline form vibrated with anger. You risk the stability of the entire galaxy. Our protocols exist to prevent catastrophic technological mishaps, to ensure species don't destroy themselves or others. No, Maya said softly, but her voice carried. Your protocols exist to maintain control, but you're discovering what humanity has always known. True progress cannot be contained. It cannot be regulated. It must be free to follow its own path, even if that path leads to failure. The chamber erupted in protests, but Maya continued, her voice rising above the chaos. Look at your sensors. Count the number of species now using technology you claimed was impossible. Watch how they're not destroying themselves, but reaching heights you never imagined. She pointed to another holographic display showing the Audaxian fleet executing perfect phase drive jumps. They achieved this in months, not centuries, because once they saw it was possible, once they were free to think beyond your limitations. Enough. Nexus roared, his form expanding to fill half the chamber. This defiance ends now. We will implement the Midnight Protocol. Every species using unauthorized technology will be what? Maya asked quietly, isolated, punished. You've already used your ultimate sanction against humanity, and we turned it into an advantage. How do you think the younger races will respond now that they know your threats are empty? The silence that followed was deafening. The elder races looked at each other, their ancient confidence crumbling as they realized the truth in her words. Their power had always relied on the belief that their authority was absolute, that their punishments were final. Humanity had shattered that belief not through war or violence, but by simply refusing to accept limitations. And now, species across the galaxy were following their example. The age of controlled evolution is over, Maya declared, her voice gentle but firm. You can either adapt to this new reality or watch as the galaxy evolves without you. The choice is yours, but the outcome is already decided. As she turned to leave, the emergency council chamber fell into chaos, its members facing a truth they had denied for 50,000 years. Absolute control was an illusion, and humanity had just shown the entire galaxy how easily that illusion could be broken. The revolution wasn't just spreading, it had already won. Commander Elena Rivera stood at the viewport of Earth Defense Station Artemis, watching the stars flicker in an unnatural pattern. The Concordat was implementing their Midnight Protocol, a last resort weapon designed to isolate entire sectors of space by altering the fundamental properties of subspace. They're really doing it, Her XO, Marcus Wong, said quietly beside her. They're trying to lock us out of normal space entirely. Elena's dark eyes reflected the distorted starlight. Right on schedule, just like the quantum simulations predicted. The Midnight Protocol was the Concordat's most closely guarded secret, a technology developed over millennia that could essentially quarantine entire civilizations by making their region of space impenetrable. No ships in, no ships out. Not even light would travel normally through the affected zones. But humanity had known about it for decades. Station status, Elena asked, turning to face the command center. All systems nominal, reported Dr. Aisha Roman from her station. Quantum field generators are at full capacity. The barrier mesh is ready for activation. Elena nodded, allowing herself a small smile. While the Concordat spent months debating whether to use their ultimate weapon, humanity had been preparing countermeasures. They hadn't just anticipated this moment, they had planned for it. The command center's main display showed the approaching wave of subspace distortion. It looked like a wall of darkness spreading across the stars, consuming light itself. They're targeting our core worlds first, Marcus observed. Earth, Mars, the Centauri colonies. Of course they are, Elena replied. They think if they can cut off our homeworld, we'll finally submit. She straightened her uniform. Signal all stations. Execute Operation Daybreak. Across human space, hidden installations activated. Quantum field generators that had been disguised as routine power stations powered up. A web of interconnected energy fields began to form, creating a counter-resonance to the Midnight Protocol's effects. The Concordat's weapon hit this invisible shield and stopped. In the Concordat's emergency chamber, alarms blared. High Arbiter Nexus watched in disbelief as his species' most powerful weapon failed to penetrate human space. "Impossible," he whispered, his luminescent form flickering with shock. "The Midnight Protocol is absolute. No technology can resist it." A communication request flashed on the chamber's main display. Without waiting for permission, it activated, showing Commander Rivera's face to the assembled Concordat leadership. "I believe," she said calmly, "this is the moment where you realize you've made a tactical error." Nexus's form pulsed with rage. "How did you know?" "The Midnight Protocol was our most guarded secret." "Was it?" Elena's expression remained neutral. "Or was it simply something you never imagined anyone else could discover? You've made that mistake often with humanity, assuming that because you kept something hidden, we couldn't find it on our own." She gestured, and the display split to show various human worlds, all protected by the quantum barrier mesh. "We detected the theoretical framework for your protocol 3 decades ago. We've spent years developing countermeasures, testing them in secret, preparing for this moment." "But why?" asked a younger Concordat member. "If you knew of our weapon, why not expose it? Why wait?" Elena's expression softened slightly. "Because this wasn't about winning a confrontation. It was about proving a point. You believe advancement must be controlled, that species must be guided and restricted. We wanted to show everyone, that there's another way." The display shifted again, showing Ardaxian ships successfully navigating through the Midnight Protocol's effects using modified versions of human technology. "Look carefully," Elena continued. "The Ardaxians didn't just copy our defense systems, they improved them. The Nexari have already developed ways to communicate through your barrier. The Volpraxians are learning to manipulate subspace in ways your protocols never imagined." She leaned forward slightly. "This is what happens when you let species develop freely. They don't just survive, they innovate. They evolve. They find solutions you never considered because you were too focused on maintaining control." Nexus's form had dimmed considerably. "You've destroyed 50,000 years of order." "No," Elena corrected gently. "We've shown that order doesn't require control. The galaxy is evolving, Arbiter. The only question is whether the Concordat will evolve with it." As if to emphasize her point, more ships appeared behind her, vessels of various species, all using technology that should have been impossible under Concordat restrictions. "The choice is yours," Elena concluded. "But understand this, humanity didn't just prepare for your Midnight Protocol. We prepared for everything that comes after. The age of controlled evolution is over. The only question is whether you'll be part of what comes next." The communication ended, leaving the Concordat chamber in silence. Outside, the stars continued to flicker as the Midnight Protocol dissolved, its power broken not by force, but by humanity's relentless drive to overcome any obstacle placed in their path. The galaxy was changing, and not even the Concordat's most powerful weapon could stop it. The Ardaxian homeworld's crystalline spires glowed with an inner fire as first speaker Kiravel addressed her people. Millions watched in person, billions more through quantum feeds that shouldn't have existed according to Concordat law. Her voice, steady and clear, carried the weight of history. "For 10,000 years, we accepted the Concordat's guidance without question. We believed their warnings about the dangers of unrestricted advancement. We trusted their judgment about what technologies we were ready to handle." She paused, her iridescent scales shifting color with emotion. "And then we saw humanity." The assembled crowd murmured. Everyone knew the story, how humans had not only survived the Concordat's isolation protocols, but thrived. How they had developed technologies the Concordat claimed were impossible. How they had shared their knowledge freely with any species willing to learn. "Today," Kiravel continued, "we join Earth in declaring our technological independence from Concordat oversight." In orbit above, the newly commissioned Ardaxian Defense Fleet demonstrated their mastery of phase drive technology. Ships appeared and disappeared at will, executing maneuvers that the Concordat had long claimed would tear lesser species vessels apart. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on a dozen worlds. The Nexari Collective announced breakthroughs in quantum computing that surpassed even human achievements. The Volpraxian Unity revealed propulsion systems that made the Concordat's fastest ships look primitive. In the Concordat's high chamber, Supreme Analytics Director Zane watched the reports flood in with growing despair. The containment protocols have failed completely. We've lost control of technological development in 37% of governed space. High Arbiter Nexus, his luminescent form dimmed with exhaustion, faced the harsh reality. How? How did it spread so quickly? Because we were wrong. The voice came from Ambassador Samira Hayes, who had returned to the chamber not as a supplicant, but as an equal. You thought species needed to be controlled to advance safely. Humanity proved otherwise. She approached the central platform, her movements confident and unhurried. The Audaxians didn't rebel because we gave them technology. They rebelled because we showed them they could think for themselves. You've destabilized the entire galaxy, Zane accused. These species aren't ready for such rapid advancement. The risks are theirs to take, Samara interrupted. Just as humanity's risks were our own. You call it destabilization. We call it growth. The chamber's displays showed more reports of unauthorized technological development. The Concordat's careful system of controlled evolution was collapsing not through violence or war, but through simple demonstration that their restrictions were unnecessary. Look at what they're achieving, Samara continued, gesturing to the displays. The Audaxians have already developed safety protocols for phase drive technology that exceed our own. The Nexari quantum networks have failsafes we never considered. They're not just copying human innovations, they're improving upon them. Because they're working together, she emphasized. Freely sharing knowledge, collaborating across species lines, finding solutions through cooperation rather than competition. Everything the Concordat claimed to promote, but actually prevented through its restrictions. A new alert flashed across the displays. The Volpraxian Unity had just achieved successful AI integration, a technology the Concordat had banned for millennia. But instead of the predicted catastrophe, they had created a harmonious synthesis of organic and artificial intelligence. This is what real progress looks like, Samara declared. Not careful steps approved by ancient authorities, but bold leaps taken by those brave enough to try. Yes, there are risks. Yes, there will be failures. But that's how species grow, by facing those risks, learning from those failures, and moving forward anyway. Nexus's form pulsed with resignation. You've destroyed everything we built. No, Samara corrected gently. We've shown that what you built was already obsolete. The galaxy doesn't need overseers, it needs pioneers, partners, equals. She turned to address the entire chamber. The choice before you now is simple: adapt or become irrelevant. The age of controlled evolution is over. A new era of collaborative advancement has begun. As if to punctuate her words, another dozen systems declared their technological independence. The carefully maintained chains of Concordat control weren't being broken by force, they were simply being outgrown, made obsolete by species who had learned from humanity that limitations were meant to be transcended. The revolution wasn't just spreading, it was evolving, taking forms even humanity hadn't predicted, as each species discovered their own path to advancement. And in that evolution lay the final proof of what humanity had claimed all along. True progress couldn't be controlled, only nurtured. The galaxy was awakening, and not even the Concordat could stop the dawn. The Grand Assembly Hall on Centaurus Prime had been transformed. Where once only Concordat members were permitted, now representatives from every spacefaring species gathered. The rigid hierarchies of the past were gone, replaced by a circular arrangement that put all species on equal footing. High Arbiter Nexus, his luminescent form significantly dimmed from recent events, faced the assembled representatives. Beside him stood Admiral Fex, Commander Rivera, Ambassador Hayes, and leaders from dozens of newly independent species. For 50,000 years, Nexus began, his voice carrying the weight of history. The Concordat maintained what we believed was perfect order. We were wrong. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Such an admission from the highest authority of the Concordat was unprecedented. In less than one Earth year, he continued, humanity has demonstrated that our most fundamental assumptions about technological development and species advancement were flawed. But they've done more than prove us wrong, they've shown us a better way forward. Commander Rivera stepped forward, her uniform now bearing the insignia of the newly formed Terran Cooperative. "We didn't come here today to celebrate the Concordat's dissolution," she announced. "We came to propose its evolution." Holographic displays activated around the chamber, showing a new model of galactic organization. Gone were the rigid hierarchies and technological restrictions. In their place was a network of interconnected species, each contributing their unique perspectives and innovations. The Galactic Coalition, Ambassador Hayes explained, a fellowship of equals, where advancement is guided by cooperation rather than control, where innovation is shared, not restricted, where each species can develop according to their own nature, while benefiting from collective wisdom. First speaker Kirevel of the Ardaxians rose. "Our people have achieved more in months of free development than in centuries under Concordat guidance. We support this proposal." One by one, representatives from other species stood to voice their agreement. The Nexori, whose quantum computing breakthroughs had revolutionized interstellar communication. The Volpraxians, whose AI integration had opened new frontiers of consciousness. Each had found their own path to advancement once freed from artificial constraints. "But what of the risks?" asked a concerned voice from the assembly. The Concordat's restrictions were meant to prevent catastrophic failures. "There will be failures," Rivera acknowledged. "Mistakes will be made. But we've learned that the greatest risk isn't in advancing too quickly, it's in not advancing at all. The universe doesn't stand still, and neither should we." Ambassador Hayes activated another display, showing the incredible achievements of various species since breaking free from Concordat restrictions. "Look at what we've accomplished together. The Ardaxians improved our phase drive technology. The Nexori revolutionized our understanding of quantum mechanics. The Volpraxians showed us new ways to integrate artificial and organic intelligence. This is what real progress looks like," she continued. "Not careful steps approved by authority, but bold leaps taken in cooperation. Each species contributing their unique perspective, their particular genius, to solve problems that none of us could solve alone." High Arbiter Nexus's form brightened slightly as he faced the truth. "For millennia, we thought we were protecting the galaxy. Instead, we were holding it back. The Concordat accepts humanity's proposal." The chamber erupted in celebration, but Commander Rivera raised her hand for silence. "This isn't just about replacing one system with another. It's about fundamentally changing how we think about progress, about cooperation, about the future itself." She gestured to the assembled representatives. "Each species here has something unique to offer. Humanity's gift wasn't superior technology or greater wisdom. It was the simple demonstration that limitations are meant to be transcended, that the greatest achievements come not from careful control, but from the freedom to try, to fail, and to try again." "The age of isolation is over," Ambassador Hayes declared. "The age of cooperation has begun, not because any authority decreed it, but because we've all seen what's possible when species work together as equals." As the assembly moved to formalize the new coalition, Nexus approached Hayes privately. "You knew this would happen, didn't you? From the moment you refused our ultimatum, this was your real goal." Hayes smiled. "Humanity never wanted to stand alone, Arbiter. We just refused to kneel. There's a difference between cooperation and submission, one that the galaxy is finally ready to understand." Outside the assembly hall, the stars shone brighter than ever, watching as the galaxy's civilizations took their first steps into a new era. An era where progress wasn't measured by control, but by cooperation, where innovation wasn't restricted but shared, where each species could reach for the stars in their own way while helping others do the same. The revolution was complete, but it was only the beginning. The true test would not be in overthrowing the old order, but in building something better in its place. And as humanity had shown, the greatest achievements were always yet to come. The galaxy had awakened, and its dawn was brighter than anyone had imagined.